I had to be desperate. My reality had started to become hazy due to anxiety, insomnia, and nightmares. I'm Ethan Cole, a 29-year-old Ohioan who hadn't slept for more than 2 hours every night for weeks. I always saw the same thing when I closed my eyes, a shadowy figure standing just outside the window, muttering incomprehensible words. I made an appointment with Dr. Jonathan Harris, a famous therapist traveling from London, out of sheer desperation. His reputation was flawless, rational, logical, a man of science. Maybe he could fix what was wrong inside me. His office was unsettlingly perfect. The lights were too bright, the air too still. He smiled warmly, almost rehearsed. "Evil isn't real, Ethan. Only the mind," he said, leaning forward with confidence. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to think all of this was in my head. But the second I nodded, the lights flickered. Once, then again. The air changed. It grew thick, electric, like the world was holding its breath. Behind the frosted glass window, a shadow shifted, slow and deliberate. My pulse spiked. I turned to speak, but Dr. Harris was staring over my shoulder, pale, frozen. A whisper slithered through the room, "You can't deny me forever." It wasn't loud. It wasn't human. And the worst part, it came from inside the room. Dr. Harris blinked, and the shadow vanished. He adjusted his glasses like nothing happened, forcing a smile. "You see, just your imagination," he said. But the reflection in the window was still there, smiling back at me. I wish I had walked out right then, because what happened next changed everything. Session 2 began just as the last one ended, with that same faint hum in the air, like the walls were holding their breath. I sat across from Dr. Harris again, gripping the armrest to keep my hands from shaking. The voice came back, I said quietly. It called me by my childhood name. His pen froze mid-note before he smiled, too quickly, and said, "Your subconscious is clever, Ethan. It's using nostalgia to personalize your fear. Nothing more." His tone was calm, dismissive, but his eyes, just for a second, flickered toward the window. I wanted to believe him, but the temperature in the room dropped suddenly. The air grew thick, my breath turning visible. The faint scent of decay filled my lungs, not dust, not age, something rotting. I glanced at the plants near his desk. They were wilting in real time, curling into themselves like they were suffocating. Dr. Harris didn't seem to notice. Or maybe he pretended not to. "You see," he said softly, "the mind projects what it fears." But before I could respond, something moved in the window behind him. It wasn't a person. It wasn't even a shape I could define, just a smear of darkness that pulsed faintly, as if breathing in rhythm with me. Then his reflection, not the real Dr. Harris, but the one in the glass, turned its head toward me and grinned. A wide, knowing grin that didn't belong to him. My pulse exploded. My breath hitched. The reflection's lips moved, though his real mouth stayed still. It mouthed words I couldn't unsee, "You finally see me too." I stumbled backward in the chair, my hand brushing against the cold surface of the desk. The sound of my heartbeat drowned everything else. Dr. Harris blinked, confused. "Ethan, what's wrong?" But I couldn't answer, because in that moment, in that impossible reflection, I realized it wasn't my imagination anymore. Someone, or something, had been waiting for me to notice it, and now that I had, it wasn't going to let me forget. We set up recording equipment, and it began to play whispers we had never heard before, faint, overlapping murmurs that twisted through the static like something alive. The murmurs got more definite with each playback of the file, forming phrases that seemed to know our names, our secrets, and our worries. As I looked, motionless, Dr. Harris, who always valued reason over myth, moved forward and began scrawling rapidly. Then, a third voice emerged, not a whisper this time, but a deep, calm tone that seemed to vibrate through the walls. "You invited me." The air turned heavy, like the room itself had started breathing. Dr. Harris lurched back, eyes wide, and tossed the recorder across the lab. It didn't break, it laughed. A deep, moist sound, like breath stuck in a throat. "What did you do, Ethan?" he cried, his voice shaking as shadows stretched unnaturally around the walls. I tried to talk, to explain that I had merely followed the experiment's protocol, that I hadn't called anything. But when I opened my mouth, the voice that came out wasn't mine. It was Malik, our former colleague who had disappeared 2 months previously during the same experiment. The words were perfect, his tone, his pauses, and his final sentence before he vanished. It's not a signal, it's an invitation. Dr. Harris froze as every recording device in the room came on by itself, broadcasting our own voices, distorted, mixed with whispers saying, "Join us." The lights flickered. I looked down and saw my reflection in the glass of the monitor, only, it wasn't me staring back. It was Malik, smiling slightly, whispering phrases I could now hear without the recorder. "You pressed record," he replied, "so now, I play." And just as the darkness overtook the room, I knew, the true experiment had never been about sound. It was about who would answer. The office temperature dropped below freezing overnight, the kind of cold that crawls under your skin and makes your breath hang like smoke in the dark. Dr. Harris came in early, clutching a small vial of holy water he'd brought from the church across town, desperation replacing his usual arrogance. I warned him not to. I told him it wasn't sacred things this presence feared, it was attention. But he didn't listen. When the first drops hit the carpet, they hissed like acid, releasing a sharp stench that burned the air. A low rumble echoed from the walls, like something deep inside the building was breathing back at us. Dr. Harris stumbled, the color draining from his face as every bulb flickered and died, leaving only the faint blue light of the monitors. "You were right," he whispered, voice shaking. "This isn't controllable." I could see it in his eyes now, the horror of realizing science had met something that refused to be studied. I leaned closer, and in the silence between our breaths, I whispered, "It doesn't want control, only company." The words felt foreign and heavy, like someone else was speaking through me. That night, he stayed behind, trying to document the phenomenon one last time. The next morning, the office door was locked from the inside. When they broke it open, the air was colder than ever, and every device was shattered, except his desk. Claw marks ran deep across the wood, carved with impossible precision, forming 5 jagged letters that glowed faintly under the flickering light, ETHAN. I wasn't there that night, but somehow, it knew my name. And when I played back the last recording, Dr. Harris's voice came through, trembling, distant, followed by another whisper, calm and familiar, "Now you're the invitation." He came to my apartment just past midnight, pale, trembling, and soaked in sweat despite the cold. His eyes were bloodshot, veins dark like spiderwebs crawling toward his pupils. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. When I opened the door, he didn't even wait for me to speak. "It followed me," he whispered, voice cracking, a raw edge of terror in every syllable. I wanted to ask what he meant, what followed him, but the air changed before I could. The hallway light above us flickered once, twice, then died. A moment later, the next bulb went out, then the next. Each light died in perfect order, one by one, moving down the corridor toward us like a countdown. With every flicker, a faint hum filled the air, low, rhythmic, almost like breathing. Dr. Harris grabbed my shoulder, his hand icy and trembling. "Don't let it in," he murmured, eyes darting toward the dark end of the hall. But it was already too late. From that darkness came a voice I knew too well, calm, deliberate, and laced with something that almost sounded like affection. "We missed you." Me the sound, faint claws scraping down the wall, slow and deliberate, tracing lines like they were writing something. The light from my laptop screen flickered, showing shadows that didn't match our movements. One of them stepped forward, its edges pulsing like smoke caught in wind. It had no face, no eyes, just a curve where a mouth should have been. And then I heard Malik again, right behind me this time, his voice calm, almost tender. "You pressed record. Now it's your turn to play." The lights went out completely. I could still feel the shadow's grin hanging in the air, warm, alive, waiting. That's when I understood what Malik had meant all along. It wasn't trapped in the recordings. It was using them to travel. Every time we played them, every time we listened, we invited it closer. Dr. Harris's hands trembled as he reached for the recorder, but he didn't press stop, he just stared at it, frozen. His face had gone pale, his lips twitching as if arguing with someone I couldn't see. Finally, he whispered, "Ethan. I need to tell you something." His tone had changed, not the steady, logical calm of a therapist, but something broken, desperate. "I've spoken to Malik." My stomach turned cold. The name hit the air like a pulse, and every light in the room dimmed for a split second. You what? I stammered. You told me he wasn't real. Dr. Harris's eyes darted toward the mirror on the far wall, the same one where I'd seen that smile days before. I thought he was just a projection, he muttered. An idea. But I was wrong. I talked to him, and now, I can't stop him. For a moment, silence pressed in, thick and suffocating. Then he spoke again, but something was off. His lips moved once, yet two voices came out. His and another, deeper one, perfectly synchronized like a cruel echo. It crawled under my skin. Who's talking right now? I whispered. Dr. Harris tilted his head unnaturally, the bones in his neck cracking with the motion. The smile that stretched across his face didn't belong to him, it was too wide, too calm, too knowing. Both of us, he said. The overhead light flickered. Shadows stretched across the floor, merging beneath his feet like they were alive. His reflection in the mirror didn't mimic his movement anymore, it just stared at me, smiling while he spoke. I backed toward the door, my throat tightening. Dr. Harris, I said, barely able to breathe, what did you let in? He blinked slowly, his pupils dilating until his eyes were nearly black. He wanted to understand pain, he murmured. So I let him inside. The air crackled. The window behind him went pitch dark, reflecting only me, and in that reflection, he wasn't in the room anymore. But something else was standing behind me. That's when I learned the truth, Malik didn't haunt me. He sh. Clinic shut down. They said it was a gas leak, but I know that's a lie. I was there when the walls started to breathe, when the lights pulsed like veins under the ceiling, and when Dr. Harris's voice split into two. The police sealed everything off, but I still see it when I close my eyes, his office chair spinning slowly in the dark, papers floating in the air like something had just exhaled. No one ever found his body. A week later, I got an email. No sender. No subject. Just an attachment titled, Session 7, Alone. My hands shook as I clicked it open. The audio began with static, faint breathing, and the sound of Dr. Harris whispering, "If you're hearing this, Ethan, it means he's inside me now." Then came another voice, slower, deeper, like it was dragging each syllable through ash. It repeated him, perfectly synced but delayed by half a second. Malik. I paused the recording, but it didn't stop. My speakers kept playing, whispering my name in both voices at once, Ethan, Ethan, Ethan. The lights in my room dimmed, my laptop screen flickered, and for a second, my reflection appeared, only it didn't move when I did. It smiled. Behind it, something darker stood still, its eyes hollow and wide. Then, from the speakers, "You were right. Now I believe." The sound turned into screams, human and inhuman, overlapping like hundreds of voices trapped in one throat. I slammed the laptop shut. The room fell silent, except for one whisper that came from behind me, "You shouldn't have listened." That night, I unplugged everything. I burned the USB drive. Still, every midnight, the same email appears again in my inbox. No sender. No subject. Just the same file, Session 7, Alone. And every time I ignore it, I hear faint static through the walls, followed by Dr. Harris's voice, closer each night. Session 8 begins now, Ethan. Moved cities, new life. Or at least, that's what I told myself. I sold everything, packed a single suitcase, and crossed 3 states just to escape the whispers. I found a quiet apartment in Cincinnati, small, peaceful, and most importantly, mirrorless. For a few months, silence felt like healing. I stopped looking over my shoulder. I started sleeping again. I told myself that whatever had happened with Dr. Harris and Malik was just madness, shared delusion, trauma, or something explainable. But peace never lasts long when the thing you're escaping isn't outside you, it's inside. It began one humid night. I woke up to the faint buzz of my phone vibrating on the table. No name, just a voicemail notification. I almost ignored it, but habit won. When I played it, my blood froze. It was Dr. Harris's voice, weak, trembling, and broken. It followed me here. A loud hiss of static filled the room. Then, buried under that crackling, came another voice, lower, colder, and one I'd know anywhere. "We missed you." I dropped the phone. My heart hammered. I deleted the message instantly, hands shaking. The notification disappeared, only to flash back a second later. One new voicemail. Same file. Same timestamp. I deleted it again. It came back. Every time I erased it, it reappeared, like the phone was breathing it back to life. I turned the phone off completely. The screen stayed black, yet I still heard the faint vibration. When I picked it up again, the screen flickered on by itself, the light bleeding through my fingers like a pulse beneath skin. The message was there again, but the timestamp had changed. Tomorrow, 3:15 a.m. It wasn't a memory anymore, it was a countdown. And deep down, I already knew, when that time came, it wouldn't be a call. It would be a visit. I returned to his office. The structure was condemned, windows boarded, air thick with rot. Dust coated the chairs like no one had been there for years, yet the faint aroma of cologne still lingered. Dr. Harris's cologne. My footfall echoed strangely slow, like the walls were listening. Files lay scattered over the floor, each one labeled Ethan Cole, ongoing. My chest tightened. I was the sole patient listed. Then I noticed it, on the distant wall, scribbled in dried brown streaks, "Therapy continues." The words pulsed softly, as if newly scrawled. My breath fogged even though the air was warm. The mirror behind the therapist's chair flickered, static crawling across its surface like a damaged television screen hunting for a signal. I froze. My reflection wasn't moving. Then the static cleared. He was there. Dr. Harris. Perfect suit, serene smile, eyes far too dark. "Welcome back," he whispered quietly, yet his voice came from everywhere at once, the ceiling, the floor, my cranium. He nodded toward the couch. "Lay down, Ethan. Let's talk about faith." The words went through me like cold water, familiar and invasive. I didn't move, but my reflection did. It moved toward him, obediently lying down as if it belonged there. My throat clenched. I attempted to back away, but every step echoed twice, mine and his. The reflection tilted its head, smirked, and murmured something I couldn't hear through the glass. Then the lights flickered briefly, and I felt someone breathing just beside my ear. "We never stopped," the whisper murmured. "You just left mid-session." When I eventually turned back, my reflection was still lying on the couch, but it wasn't me anymore. Therapy is designed to tackle fears. That's what they say, face the darkness inside you, talk it out, give it a name. But no one warns you what happens when the darkness answers back. Sometimes, devils are listening. Sometimes, they take notes. Dr. Harris didn't believe in them, he believed in patterns, trauma, and brain chemistry. He thought he could diagnose the shadows out of me. Until the day he met one. The day his voice changed pitch mid-sentence. The day he learned Malik wasn't a delusion, he was a listener. Now, I still hear him. Not in words. In dreams. The same tone, the same calm therapist voice stating, "Let's begin our next session." Every time, I wake up drenched in perspiration, my phone recording itself. The recording invariably finishes with a second voice whispering over mine, "Progress takes commitment, Ethan." I destroyed every device and deleted every file, but they came back, re-downloaded, and renamed it Session 8. So if your therapist ever grins and says, "Demons aren't real," smile back. But don't argue. Don't say the name. Never utter Malik. Because he loves hearing it from new mouths. That's how he knows who to visit next. And if, while watching this, you feel the air in your room go still, the hum of your phone fade, the session might already be started. If you ever record your therapy, check the playback twice. Because occasionally, someone else may already be listening.